Good morning, folks. Elements and high energy particles, decay particles. Oh man, this one is a tough one. So, elements are all around us, they surround us. We are encircled by them. There's air that surrounds us. Inside that air is dust and bugs and oxygen and nitrogen and CO2 and all types of other elements. The list of elements in the air is as long as the elements on the planet, because the air picks up the dust and throws it around the whole planet. The pollution throws it around the whole planet. So eventually, in that dust's travel, it settles out somewhere, and by nature, it gets separated and concentrated or diluted and dispersed. There's two options here. But the atmosphere is a huge, let's call it a mechanical separator. You can see that in clouds. When you see a low cloud and a high cloud and they look different, it's because the atmosphere around them is different. So really subtle things going on with this transport. It's happening all the time, day and night. There's bugs, there's birds, there's dust, there's dirt, there's soot, there's just particles in general in the air, including the oxygen we breathe and the CO2. So there's particles, they're everywhere. Now, when you get into decaying particles, this is where it gets hugely tricky, because a decaying particle is still an element. Okay, most things that decay we think of as isotopes, but actually some of them were considered elements until we learned they decayed, right? Carbon 12, carbon 14. We learned about those things and what the properties are and do. So now we know we have particles flying around the air around us all the time. No choice. Even out in deepest of outer space, there's always these particles going by. And in outer space, the high energy particles, the other not elements, the pieces of elements, the energies traveling through the universe are always there. We don't know how to get rid of them. It's that zero question we're looking for, right? That absolute zero. But so now you take an instrument out in the air. You're sitting in a field and the wind is blowing. And this is a very good instrument, and it has a button on it that says alpha, beta, and gamma. This is a rarity in the instruments we would run across. Usually we'd have to figure out, remember, we don't have the money for the good toys. So we would have to figure out with our little Geiger counter if there was alpha or beta or gamma. And we can do that by using some very kind of easy techniques with a filter. Simple piece of plastic will stop alpha. Very thin, very thin. A little bit thicker piece will stop all of betas. Aluminum foil will stop betas. And then you get to a gamma, and almost nothing stops a gamma particle. It does. It is slowed down through the air. It is slowed down. It loses energy and eventually goes away. Somewhere it makes an energy transfer, but it might be a billion miles away from here where it gives up that energy. So tough stuff. It's hard to fathom what's going on there. So when using a detector, since we typically speak to alpha, beta, and gamma particles, now remember there's more. There's neutrons. There's other things that get thrown out of, go into all the particles that make up an atom. You know, they talk about muons and gluons and fruta. I don't know what it's in there. I could go look again, refresh my mind, but it's not, I can't go there that easy. So back to alpha, beta, gamma. So with my meter, I showed using some simple filters, and it probably took me an hour of time to let the meter sit there and settle out and get some confidence in the reading for that alpha reading. And then I'm going to do a beta reading, and then I'm going to, if I have 3 meters, I'm going to be looking at all 3 meters and playing some very subtle games with them, looking for measurement differences. So anyway, let's agree I've found that there's 10% alpha. There's 10 counts per minute of alpha here. And there's 30 counts per minute of gamma. Well, normally I wouldn't have much alpha with gamma. Maybe. It all depends on where you are, what all of these elements are that you're working with. If you don't understand what they are, you can only make educated assumptions. But here is the end, because this is going to get too long. An alpha particle has a very short travel distance. As the humidity in the air increases, that travel distance decreases, which means the alpha particle, when it decayed, was in the environment very near you. So those particles are floating in the air. Beta particles are the same way. They have a little bit longer distance, maybe twice the distance, just for conversation's sake, that they will go. So they will go 8 feet instead of 4 feet before they're stopped. And a gamma is going to go 100 feet or 1,000 miles. We don't know where that gamma is going to stop. We know it with statistics. So anyway, that alpha particle in the air means that there are elements in the air very likely that you're breathing in. Now you get into the challenge of dosimetry. If you go look at the book's lost, it'll come back. If you go look at the books that give you those numbers that lead you to dosimetry for each element or isotope type, and put that all together, then you come up with potential harm. You can't do it. So now all of a sudden, instead of knowing how much alpha is in the air, you need to know what the probabilities are of you ingesting that particle. When you ingest the particle, you essentially, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but if you go look at them, you double, triple, quadruple the dosimetry, because the odds are that particle in your body has a good chance of traveling very close to something and doing damage within its 2-foot radius. Normally to your skin, it would just be flaking skin, and your body externally is very well designed to handle that. But what it also could mean is cataracts over a 20-year exposure period. So laying out in the beach by Sellafield could be a statistical cause of cataracts. Period. That is how it works. Iodine in the air will be a statistical, iodine 131 will be a statistical cause of cancer. So those alphas and the betas that are being ignored in a lot of conversations are tell. They have a pretty good meaning to folks that understand this and care. So atmospheric transport and particle decay there is a boundary when you're dealing with elements. When you term an isotope an element, you're dealing with chemistry. When you term an element an isotope, it means it has a decay property. So now you have an added part in your equations for the decay of some small number of elements in your body. So this didn't help much, I don't think, but I had to give it a try. Peace out. Thank you. It is about measurements. It is about deep physics. It is about understanding some kind of simple properties and how they carry over into other areas. And yes, we're being misled. If someone doesn't think there are darn good release estimates that haven't been updated, tuned, and trimmed to the exact circumstances of today and what is left, then you are naive. This is not how these folks work. They have good data. They have data better than we may ever see. Do not kid yourself. The information is there and you feel it and I know it. So don't fall for that game. Don't think that this industry is slack at all, because they need to know how to cover their ass for the next bad day. They aren't building the robots for the next bad day. They aren't making the plans for the next bad day. Our U.S. government has ceased with the plans for the next bad day. They decided it's just not worth it. This is not good, folks. It's just, you just aren't worth worrying about for a nuclear disaster. Oh, but we want to sell you more nukes. Party on, folks. I'm still here. Damn it.